Pues es históricamente hablando, pienso que el café une a la gente, une a la familia, une a los amigos. Vas a la casa de tu familia o vas a la casa de algún amigo, nunca puede faltar café para iniciar una conversación, una plática, un convivio. Y creo que el impacto más fuerte que tiene el café es la unión, unir gente.
Coffee doesn't just show up in your cup. It takes an extremely long and complex journey. To go from the farm all the way to the coffee shop or to your kitchen and then brewed to be in your cup. We lose track and sight of the people that put in the time and effort to make this for us. Going down to Mexico really gave me insight into how unique coffee's journey can really be.
Pues realmente si lo llevas como un trabajo se te vuelve difícil. Sin embargo, pues las plantas son seres vivientes que todos los días están creciendo y necesitan cosas, ¿no? Se enferman como las personas, necesitan comer igual como las personas, entonces ellas no tienen un horario, ¿no? Entonces necesitas darles, proveerles todo eso para que ellas te lo devuelvan pues con café. Entonces es muy demandante de tiempo.
Unfortunately, people have viewed coffee as something as more of a convenience item, and that has affected coffee in a relatively negative way in that it doesn't hold the value that coffee deserves. It doesn't hold the value that the farmers and the smallholders are putting into this crop, this cherry that they grow, pick, and process. And so a lot of the times, someone goes to the 7-Eleven down the street, or they go to Maverick and they grab a cup of coffee that's $2 or something along those lines, and they're trying to save a buck because they just want some caffeine and they want to get going. I'm not saying that's a terrible thing, but I am saying that that takes away from an extremely beautiful, an extremely complicated, and extremely interesting process that not a lot of people participate in.
Creo que por mi formación, yo soy ingeniero químico, entonces cuando veo al café o hablan de café, yo lo veo como una entidad, aunque sea un grano pequeño. Dentro de ese grano pequeño hay muchas cosas que pasan. No, tanto en el campo hay formación de muchos compuestos, están ocurriendo muchas reacciones químicas en este momento en el campo. Y ya cuando llega al tostador, en el tostador también ocurren demasiados cambios químicos y es algo que me llama mucho la atención, ver que algo tan pequeño pueda tener una complejidad muy grande, muy vasta. Entonces, cuando lo veo así, me apasiona el poder estudiarlo más a fondo, y el poder entenderlo más a fondo es algo que me llena de mucha alegría, sí, me hace sentir bien, me hace sentir feliz.
How much does the farmer actually get? Is the real question. I mean, we did an interview with this. We actually talked with somebody that spent a lot of time at origin in multiple countries. And the economics of coffee usually ends up with the farmer getting 0.0003 cents of a cup of coffee. So nothing. They get almost nothing from a cup of coffee. Obviously, billions of cups of coffee served globally, so that number does come up. But if you think about it from a coffee farmer's point of view, you're really not getting very much for all that effort that you put in. I have done an origin trip to Costa Rica before, and in Costa Rica, it's extremely regulated. There's a lot of government involvement, and for some people that sounds like a terrible idea, but for a farmer, being guaranteed a price in Costa Rica for their coffee and their hard work is a godsend. And then you go to Mexico and it's different. It's a completely different environment. In Mexico, you have government regulation in some regions, you have cartel regulation in others. And at the end of the day, the real person that holds this big stick are the large international exporters that are taking coffee from this country at whatever price they choose and spreading it around. When we were spending our time in Chiapas, we got to get insight into the dealings of what it's like to be a farmer trying to sell your coffee to somebody like NKG or Ecom. And what we found is that farmers really have no negotiating power. They grow this coffee, they put in the time and effort, and they could have an amazing crop, and instead of being able to receive the price that it's worth, they end up being paid by middlemen called coyotes that are employed by NKG and Ecom to pretty much control the price of the market.
Sarchimor y no me acuerdo cuál es el otro.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
Realmente, pues, todas las personas quieren ganar dinero. Sin embargo, los coyotes lo hacen de alguna otra manera, que van a copiar café de productores que realmente tienen necesidad de tener dinero para poder pagar todo el proceso de cosecha y pagar todo el proceso de cuidado del café durante un año. Entonces, cuando el productor está realmente desesperado por conseguir dinero para pagar todo eso, todo lo que implica, es ahí donde el coyote entra, ¿no? O sea, yo te pago tanto y si quieres, ¿no? Pero ahora ya hay más oportunidades de poder elegir con quién vender tu café, pero si no tienes esa oportunidad, pues con el primer coyote que llegue a ofrecerte un precio, pues y como necesitas dinero, pues lo vendes, ¿no? Y hay veces de que tienes un café de calidad, pero como ellos te fijan el precio, pues no tienes la oportunidad de negociar pues con la calidad que tú tienes, ¿no? Entonces, pues los coyotes pues realmente no puedo decir que son malos, pero tampoco puedo decir que son buenos. Me pongo a una manera neutra de verlos, pero sí lo que no me gusta de ellos es de que lucran con la necesidad de la gente.
Mamá, no mata mi cigarro.
Pues la vida de un productor es difícil, enfrentan muchos retos, muchas dificultades. Creo que sería el hecho de que esté dominada por el precio internacional del café. Y muchas veces el productor no decide el precio del café, sino que son las grandes corporaciones. Tenemos que seguir el precio que dan las grandes corporaciones, porque si no, no podemos exportar nuestro café, no lo podemos vender si no cumplimos con su demanda de precio.
Because of the way that coyotes operate, because of the fact that a farmer can go to coyotes and they get all the coffee and then they just mix it all together, we lose a sense of transparency. And it's very apparent. It's very apparent with the ability for someone like me as a local coffee shop to be able to track my coffee to the actual farmer makes a huge difference. Because then you know that, one, the coffee is being cared for properly. Two, the coffee is being grown and picked morally. But with the use of coyotes, you have no idea.
Bueno, yo más que transparencia, yo me iría más por la trazabilidad, porque cuando el coyote compra café del productor, compra café de muchos productores, que al final pues se pierde la trazabilidad, se pierde el saber quién lo produjo, dónde lo produjo, cuándo. Y cuando ese café es consumido por la persona que lo compra, no tiene información de dónde viene el café, o quién es el productor, o quién se está beneficiando de la compra de ese café, del consumo de ese café. Entonces hay el coyote, pues de cierta manera daña o bloquea la trazabilidad. Y si hay bloqueo de trazabilidad, pues hay bloqueo de calidad también.
You can't recognize a farmer for their amazing job that they did on that crop. And you can't pick out a farmer that has utilized child labor. Unfortunately, in Chiapas, Mexico, it's a reality. There is child labor being used for coffee, and it's a lot of the reason of why there are community education centers on eCafe's farms. Whether or not the farm is asking the pickers to go out and take their children to pick coffee, it comes to the pickers, and the pickers are trying to make more money. And the easiest way to make money is to utilize all the resources that they have, and that includes their family. At eCafe, they created these community education centers to provide a good reason that these children should not be going out, to provide resources for their children to learn life skills, to learn how to speak Spanish fluently and well, and to be able to communicate with their community. But this community education center does an amazing job to deter pickers from taking their families out. Unfortunately, that's not the truth with most farms in Chiapas, Mexico. Most farms in Chiapas, Mexico, the pickers come and the pickers will do whatever they want because they're going to go grab the coffee for you and you're going to pay them for what they grabbed. It's an interesting dynamic in coffee growing, specifically in Mexico, that I did not see in Costa Rica, but I'm sure is an issue that happens all around the world. Coffee is mostly farmed and grown in the developing world. And so there's not as many rules and regulations. We're not able to stay on top of these things. And that's why the transparency of our coffee is so important. Are we getting coffee that is grown morally? Are we getting coffee that is processed well? Are we getting the coffee that we deserve, but also are we giving back to the farmers what they deserve as well? That's why direct trade is so integral to keeping a thriving, sustainable coffee economy.
Sí, me gusta esa idea de tener relación con el cliente, con el producto ya terminado, que sería una taza de café, porque dentro del proceso de todo esto de la cosecha, hay muchas personas que se aprovechan de pequeños productores sobre todo, entonces lucran pues con el esfuerzo que tuvieron todo un año para cosecharlo. Entonces conocer directamente a la persona con la que se va a vender el café, pues realmente es satisfactorio, ¿no? Porque te evitas de varios problemas que hay en el camino y sabes realmente para qué trabajaste, ¿no? O sea, que este producto se está aprovechando.
And, you know, we talked to Harrison and Eric, and, you know, it's ingrained in the community. Eric pretty much said that anytime that you're driving around in the countryside, if you see a farm, there's going to be coffee trees out there. Somebody's going to be growing coffee. Everyone's growing coffee. Anyone that's growing something is growing coffee at least a little bit on their farm. And so in Chiapas specifically, a massive coffee growing region, it's just ingrained. It's literally rooted in the community.
Bueno, pues realmente acá es una zona meramente cafetalera, todo lo que es la parte de la sierra y los alrededores de Jaltenango. Como les he mencionado, yo no soy nativo de acá, soy de Comitán. Sin embargo, me he dado cuenta que el café es el medio que todos invierten en café porque saben que van a tener ganancias de ello. Entonces, pues es el motor económico principal de esta región. Y ya, pues hay otras cosas como ganadería, pero realmente el café es el motor económico de la región.
And so it's a huge part of who they are, and it's their identity at that point. Chiapas is a coffee growing region, and they grow coffee no matter what you're actually growing on your farm. You might be growing peppers. Actually, I think peanuts was the one that they mentioned. You could be growing peanuts, and there's going to be coffee on your farm. No question. You could be growing peppers, coffee on your farm. In Chiapas, based on what I was told, it's there. It's coffee.
Creo que lo más complicado para el productor es obtener prefinanciamiento para sus cosechas. Muchas veces eso es lo que los detiene de crear un café excelente, de buena calidad. Y la razón es que muchas veces se endeudan con los prestamistas o los bancos y es muy difícil para ellos poder luego pagar ese préstamo. Entonces sí, creo que se meten muchas veces en muchos problemas y terminan haciéndolo más por necesidad y no por pasión, no por amor al café, y creo que es algo que está afectando mucho a los productores.
eCafe has acted as a partner for some of these farmers. And then on the other end of it, you have people like NKG and Ecom who find these farmers at the end of the season and just buy it for as cheap as possible. And so, do we have a detailed understanding of what small farmers are going through in Chiapas, Mexico? Probably not. I think it's going to be different basis by basis. But at the end of the day, the plights that they're facing are the financial ability for them to even be able to have a crop for the season. And then after that, finding the buyers. Because if eCafe is not involved and the small farmer doesn't have a direct trade relationship, they have to go to the Coyotes. They have to go to NKG. They have to go to Ecom, and they are laid bare to the negotiating power of those massive international conglomerates.
Pues yo creo que es un panorama un poco desolador, triste, porque muchas veces no se tiene el poder suficiente para competir con las grandes industrias que actualmente dominan el mercado internacional. Pero creo que si las cosas se hacen con pasión, si las cosas se hacen bien, podemos salir adelante, podemos sacar adelante la industria.
And that's why specialty coffee exists, and that's why I believe we exist, and I believe that we're doing what we're doing, and why we have our direct trade relationships is because that narrative is important, and that narrative is absolutely necessary to creating a sustainable coffee economy. And without it, we just end up having, cookie cutter, strip picked, overwashed, all types of coffee that is just blurred into this single note in humanity that just does one thing. I think it's really important that we keep that in mind because, there's a lot of beauty out there, and even just in coffee, there's so much to be seen and so much to taste and so much to understand. I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, e-cafe, what is e-cafe? Technically, it's a farm. E-cafe is a farm, but they are a farm with a mission. They not only build and maintain community education centers on their farms, that's Finca La Cascada, Finca Las Chicharas. They also have a school. And this school takes children from elementary grade all the way through high school and college and trains them to be new leaders in the community. Education is the cornerstone of sustainability. If our future leaders of coffee, if the pickers in the farm are educated and capable of understanding what sustainability is, how to pursue it, and how to continue building on it, that creates a stronger future for coffee than I feel like anything else.
Lo que la gente quiere es recibir recurso en lugar de educación, pero el recurso es algo, el dinero o los materiales, las cosas materiales es algo que se termina, pero algo como la educación es algo que obtienes y vas a tener, es algo de mucho valor que vas a obtener toda la vida. Te va a servir para todos los aspectos de tu vida, cosa que cosas materiales no pueden satisfacer.
Me gusta la idea, el concepto que tiene e-café en parte de las ganancias, pues vaya a invertir en educación para nuevas personas. Entonces, así como a mí se me dio la oportunidad de recibir una buena educación de calidad, me gusta la idea de que formo parte de esa cadena, ¿no? De que yo ahora estoy apoyando en esta empresa, la cual apoya a Ictus y a formar nuevos líderes para México, para el Estado, si se quiere ver.
Being in Chiapas, Mexico, made me realize how completely different getting coffee from the farm to the cup is from country to country. Like I mentioned, in Costa Rica, regulated, clean, easy. And then you get to Mexico and it's just complicated and different. And you have these two countries directly next to each other in the map, and the world of coffee that they have is so immensely different. And now you have all of the other places that coffee can be grown. You have Kenya, Ethiopia, Rwanda, Indonesia, India, Vietnam, Brazil, Peru. All of these countries grow coffee, and you can barely even imagine how complex and different every single country can be. And to be honest, I'm excited to try and go into these countries to experience what it's like to take coffee from the seed directly to the cup.